Hello, welcome to Krachtwerken. If you are here to see sound samples and stuff like that for the Valeton, this is not the place. This is, I suppose, a little bit more of a negative one. There's a few things I don't get about the Valeton, and I partly want to share them, kind of talk about them, but also if anybody has any solutions, then let me know. Maybe I'm just being stupid. Anyway, so first things first, the positives. I got the Valeton for the reviews, and I think the emulations are spot on. The fact you can load your own IRs are spot on. It is a really convincing, I want to say low priced, because it is actually, compared to the others, pretty low priced. So please go, you'll see there's tons of videos of sound samples for this, so I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go through some of the things which I find really interesting about it, but somehow wasn't fully kind of thought through. The main problem I have is the fact that the patches, using the little control buttons, there is a lag. There is a lag between switching between the next patch or the pedal going on and off. It's like there's this split second, but absolutely way too noticeable lag between switching and patch. So I'll give you a quick demo. So here, I thought my guitar was out of tune. It's just my bad playing. So in this patch is just an angle, and I've got a drive pedal in front. So I don't know if you noticed that. It's the only way I can really show it. It's like there is this delay. To me, that delay is absolutely not good enough anymore, and I'll tell you why. If this thing was designed to replace a pedal board, on a pedal board, on normal analog pedals, you press the wee button and the thing is on or it's off. There's no lag, there's no delay between, me going from clean to distortion. I've got an old Zoom G1X on that I still use to this day, and I can switch between patches and I can switch between pedals on and off inside it, and there is zero lag. So for a unit of this day and age, this is a usability thing which I think is just not acceptable anymore. It has to be completely instant. If there are hardware limitations, I don't believe that really, because the DSPs and the technology has advanced so much that I'm sure that this is more a software or a firmware thing, that there's something that they can probably do to fix that lag. So Valeton, I implore you, for this to be really usable live, that needs to happen. The one thing that is really cool about it, and that I really like, but again is kind of like, can it be used or not practically, is the fact that on a patch I can set the output, or I think it's on the global preset, you can set the output for, so it's a dual channel, so it's stereo, left and right, goes out left and the right, both the balanced and just the outputs that would go to the amp. And you can set it so that the cab emulation can be switched off on both, or on the left or on the right, which I find is really interesting, because it means that you can have an amp on the stage and you can play, that output has everything but the cab emulation, but then you have the cab emulation that can go to the front of house, for example. Brilliant idea, right? Because I'm sorry, but the cab emulations and the amp simulations sound absolutely spot on, and I think this is more than usable. So all kudos to that. But here's the problem. The problem is that when you have, so they have to do a few things to make this better. They have to make it so that you can also choose if your amp emulation is switched on or off, not just the cab, because otherwise, like I did here in my PV Silver Stripe, I put the one cab off, simulation off, put it into the front of the amp, but obviously then you have an emulation of two preamps, or an amp into a preamp and then into, you know, your amp's cab, which slightly alters the tone. So what you would then do is you would take that out and you put it into the effects return of the amp, which means you bypass your amp's preamp, which means that you can utilize your whole Valeton's amp simulation. You go into the power amp of the amp, so to speak, and obviously your speaker does the rest of it. The other one has the cab emulation on, and blah blah blah, it goes into the front of house, into the desk. Perfect. But because so you should be able to manage the volume that goes out from the one that has the from the output that you assign the cab emulation to be off. And the reason is usually your effects returns don't have a volume attenuator. So in my case I could, because the Silver Stripe has an effects level attenuator, but it's just a switch, so it's just like a dB drop, which works kind of, because it's kind of in the same range, but it does mean that the overall volume is done by the master on the Valeton, which means that even that output is the same level that you then want for the desk, is the same level that you want for your amp, etc. And they aren't all the same, they're all different. So I think they have to add the fact that you can switch off the cab emulation going out to the amp, you know, with the cab and amp emulation off on the one side or both sides, whichever you want to do. There has to be an extra thing within that section. The other thing, which is kind of maybe more my problem than anything else, is that I find them setting it up without the computer a fucking nightmare. It is, again, it's something that can only be done in software. Now, I'm okay with the fact that it doesn't have a touch screen and all that, because on that price point, I'm sure that's acceptable, right? But it is, you're kind of never really sure what you're doing. You're never really sure if you're in the right place. The longer you use it, the more used to it you get. But I find these things need to be like, you know, you need to switch it on. You need to be up and running in minutes, right? And that's a software thing. It's a user interface design to me. The other thing that is very strange, and I don't know how to demo it, but you obviously have these knobs here which switch on the pedals and all the different effects in the line. Then, like in this case, you have these control buttons A, B, C, and D, and they can then be assigned to a pedal, for example, in the change, which you can then switch on and off. Now, when you're actually editing, you realize that sometimes they don't stay where they're supposed to be, and what I mean by that is they don't stay in the state that they're supposed to be, or what you would perceive they should be in. So, you, for example, if you're busy editing and or you're just messing around with it, you add, let's say a delay. Then this is green. Then you switch that off. Then the delay is off. You switch that on again. Then that button is kind of like as if it's reversed. Then it goes red, but it's off, and it's like this. Well, what the fuck now, right? And only if you save and you keep it like that, then things are okay. But it's kind of like, maybe it's my preferences and the way that I like to do things. That is the problem. Maybe it's not necessarily a real user interface problem. Maybe it's more my problem, but happy for people to comment on that. The other thing that I've noticed is that if I change patches, so let's, this thing's still recording. Yes, so let's go one back. So this is a patch I made. I really like the tone of this. It's a bit screechy on the amp, but that's because the amp simulation is going into the front of the amp. I can put it into the effects return, but just for demo purposes, fuck it. So I'm going to put the delay off. Right? Delay off. Delay on. But now I change patch to my clean patch. Now I go back. They're all on again. So what I would suggest here, from a user point of view, is that from a firmware point of view or from a control point of view, that needs to be an option. That if I switch between patches, that the one that I leave stays in the state that I left it as. And the reason is, the whole way that you play live with pedals is that you have a song, and in the intro you want some delay. Then you go from your delay into your distortion without delay, and then you go to a clean, and then maybe you want some chorus, and then you want... So it is this dance that you have that for pedals, you know, that why we have pedals in the first place, so that we can have these dynamics in the song with effects coming in and out, and them easily putting them easily in and out by, you know, stepping on them. So there are certain limitations on the amount of banks that you, on the amount of control buttons you have. So that means that if you play one song, you might want to have a song where you might need two patches. So not just being able to control the pedals, but also go to another patch where you might have some extra stuff. So that surely means that if I go back to the previous one, because there are some effects I need in that, I kind of have to know that they are in the state that I left them, so that I can control them in that way. I think that just only makes sense to me because of the way that I use effects. We're jamming at the moment, and we're just a three-piece. I'm using loopers, and we're going between delays and leads and rhythm and all that all the time. And that's what I wanted to use this for. But there's two things that make this nearly unusable for me. And that is, one, I don't want to play live and kick into a fast distortion piece and there's that delay before it goes from da-da-da to... It's a barrier, in my opinion. It's a psychological barrier for me, and I think also for the punters, it'll be noticeable. And the second thing is, like, can I really use this live chopping and changing between patches and pedals effectively like I would on a pedal board? I don't think it's good enough that it's just really good at emulating amps and cabs, which it is. It is really good. In fact, I'm doing some pre-recordings for the band right now, and I've just set some really nice amp patches in there that I want, and I'm just going to use that rather than using all the, you know, Amplitube and stuff like that, because it's done and it's dusted once it's in. But for live applications, I'm not so sure. Then here's my third bug, or fourth bug, I don't know where we're at yet. It is amazing that these pedals now have loopers built in. But what's the point if you can't really use it? I'll give you an example. I use the looper in such a way that I literally try and pretend there's two guitarists. So I would play a piece, then I would loop the rhythm, then I would play lead over that rhythm, etc. And in order to do that, I need to also change my pedals. So I need to switch my distortion on and off, I need to switch my delay on and off, and at the same time still be able to loop and stop and pause the looper. This thing has 8 buttons, and they put the looper function right in the middle of it, so everything else stops. So I cannot change patches anymore while I'm looping. And I know it sounds like duh, but actually if you play kind of slightly intricate stuff, you need to be able to change patches within the time that you're looping, because if you play your lead, if you go from a rhythm, you record your rhythm, then you want to play lead, you want to put your delay on, don't you, right? If I don't have a button to do that, I can't do that. So it becomes unusable. So in my G1XR, and I use at the moment, it's just a small pedal. It's just two pedals, on, off, and a looper stop, right? And then I use drive pedals. But the patch that I'm using on it has a. I set the delay to the control to the foot controller, right? Which means that I can blend in the delay as it comes in. I can't change. But considering this thing has 8 buttons, you would imagine that you could, through the firmware, assign certain buttons for the start and stop and keep some of the other buttons working for patches and stuff like that. If there's something I'm missing in this, if I'm moaning about bullshit and there are actually solutions to that, please let me know. But as it is, it's kind of a slight deal breaker, in my opinion, for using live. It's absolutely brilliant piece of kit the way it sounds. I have to give them all their compliments on that. So anyway, there we are. Thank you very much. Any ideas and suggestions, please let me know. Thank you very much.